Testing, testing. Are we live? Are we live? Are we live? I think we're live. Phil Adams is here. Phil, tell me if you can hear me. Okay. Tell me if the audio and video is good. We're getting back into it, ladies and gentlemen. Phil Adams, the great Phil Adams is here. It says, the British F1 Grand Prix, the Tour de France, and Coffee with Frankie. It's wall-to-wall sports Sunday for those in the British Isles of Great Britain. Phil gives me a thumbs up. All right. I guess this little microphone is working pretty well. This is Coffee with Frankie. Oh. I'm a little rusty, Phil. I'm a little rusty. This is Coffee with Frankie. This is the coffee. I'm the Frankie. So I hope you're having a caffeinated day. Good to see Phil Adams, our friend. And hopefully more folks come along as we move along here. But what we're going to do now is do a review of Jet News of the Week. So let's see if this thing here will work. I'm not optimistic. Let's see. Not exactly working. The hell? Well, at least it puts up the image. It's supposed to be a video. What the hell's going on? Well, I may have some work to do on the technical side. But hey, it worked at least as a picture. It's supposed to be a moving video with sound and stuff. All right. I'm going to have to work on the technicals. All right, but you get the idea. We're going to do some Jet News review. What happened this week in Jets Nation? All right, let's remove this because it's not working properly. Jeez, can't get anything to work around here. I have to fire some people, Phil. Fortunately, it's only me here. Good to see you. It's orange juice with Frankie here. Oh, okay. You got the OJ going? Probably. What are you, 5 hours ahead of us, Phil? So it's 10 o'clock here, so like 3 o'clock over there. It's getting a little late for the coffee. Or maybe tea. Tea with Phil Adams. Tea and crumpets with Phil. All right, anyway, we're supposed to be reviewing the news. So let's see if this works. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, that seems to work okay. Jet News Review. These are the items in the news this week with the Jets. 3:05 p.m. Yeah, about 5 hours. Okay, yeah. So let's see what was going on in the news this week for the Jets. We got, 8 items. Probably the most recent one is this. Revis versus Crow beef. So everybody's beefing these days, including our all-time great players like Darrelle Revis and Antonio Cromartie. So let's see what this is all about. Let's see if this works. What I want to do is click this attachment and go here. Okay. All right. Yeah, here we go. Hey, it's kind of working. Snowball's here. Good to see Snowball. See, but even when I click on these comments, it takes like a second. I think it's my computer, Snowball. Technical issues don't happen in Flatbush. Well, you know what? The technical issues didn't happen as much in Well, I actually never had the show when I was in Flatbush, but when I was in Pittsburgh, because I had a different laptop. I actually think it's the laptop. And as I was moving down to Florida, that laptop died on me. And it was like it was like a souped up laptop with all kinds of great, memory and RAM speed and this and that. It was a great laptop. But I was moving to Florida, so I was like, oh man, I need a new one. So I just got an El Cheapo $400 laptop just to get me by, as I was moving. And now I'm down here and I'm using the El Cheapo $400 laptop. And I think that's what's causing me the problems. It just doesn't have the specs to run all this fancy stuff. That's what I suspect anyway. But good to see Snowball is here. Snowball Global is here. But this article is by Brandon Pockris, BPOC. And as you can see here, see his smiling face. Looks like one of these young college kids. Looks like one of those guys who, your laptop breaks at your work, and you call down to the IT department, and he comes and tells you, "Hey, did you unplug it and plug it back in?" No, I didn't try that yet. Okay. Anyway, he says former New York Jets cornerbacks throw jabs at each other. Uh-oh. Everybody beefing. Everybody beefing. Darrelle Revis and Antonio Cromartie threw jabs at each other over previous comments. 2024 has been the year of the beef. And what he's talking about, in case you don't know, the year of the beef is talking about a lot of rap beefs going on between Kendrick Lamar and Drake and other people, and everybody beefing. You even have reactors on YouTube beefing with other reactors on YouTube. Reactors beefing with other reactors. So there's a lot of beefing going on in the culture. And now we have Darrelle Revis and Cromartie going at each other. Drama started when Crow appeared on the Jake Asman show. So our buddy Jake Asman has a show, as we all know. And his YouTube show, he had Cromartie on it. As we all know, Asman gets a lot of great guests to be on his show. And he made these comments about Revis, which were pretty complimentary. He understood by watching film what kind of release they were going to do. He was able to get hands on. He could play off coverage. And that's why he's in the Hall of Fame. And then apparently Revis took issue with this. So then Cromartie said, so now he's getting attacked by Darrelle for doing an interview. And I talked great about it. Now I'm jealous and lame. Dude, how am I jealous? Bruh. You have your gold jacket off 3.5 years of great play. The other 6, man. New York media wrecks and the defensive tackles made you. Now, if I was Antonio Cromartie, I probably would not have gone as hard here at old Darrelle, because Darrelle's in the Hall of Fame, and Crow is trying to be a coach, right? He's coach here in his profile, Coach Antonio, Coach Crow. And he's actually coming to our training camp as a coach. So I'm not sure if this was a good idea. If you're trying to be a coach, you might want to just step above the fray and say, hey, Darrelle was the best. Darrelle was the greatest. And then they kept going back and forth. This didn't come out quite, but Revis was saying, hey, you were supposed to cover this guy, and then I had to cover that guy, and this and that, and back and forth. So I don't know. I'm not sure why we have to have our great players beefing with each other. That's not great for the Jets. Revis is an all-time great. Cromartie is another great player that we had at the same time. They worked great together. They were like Batman and Robin. They were totally different styles of play. And they work great together. And I don't want to see them fighting with anyone, but I think that also Revis seems to be very sensitive. He got into a beef earlier this year with Joe Klecko, of all people. Who could get into a fight with Joe Klecko? Nicest guy on earth. And got into a fight with Joe, and Joe said that Klecko and Revis were two of the best defenders ever in Jet history. And Revis wanted to say, well, no, I'm number one. I'm not in the top 2. I'm number 1. I mean, guy seems a little sensitive. Maybe relax, Darrelle. I mean, have a little sense of humor. Don't be so sensitive. I don't know. I don't like when our players are beefing. We got all these all-time greats, and everybody want to have a beef like Kendrick Lamar and Drake. But maybe this is the way it is in the culture now. Everybody's got to have a beef, and if you say anything about me, then I'm going to go back at you, and this, that, and the other thing. Sometimes I think social media is, while it's one of the greatest inventions of all time, it also probably is one of the worst at the same exact time. All right, so let me know if you have any comments. What I'll do is I'll wait 5 seconds, see if there are any comments specific to this news story, and then I'll go to the next one. 5, Mississippi, 4, Mississippi, 3, Mississippi, 2, Mississippi, 1, Mississippi. All right, no specific comments. Move on to the next one. All right, next, Coach Crow now on staff, this says. Let's go to ATZSports.com by Mike Antoniou. Mike Antoniou. Jets welcome back former underrated, he says, star as part of cool program. Now, that is not the coaches of offensive line, which is a thing. No, Phil Adams, you're a little slow on the trigger, Phil. All right, but I was introducing that, so now every time I end up on a story, you'll have 5 seconds to comment. It's all about egos, Phil says. And fading manhood. Dudes are getting older, more grumpy. Yeah, but that means you should be doing something more meaningful with your life. Like, what is Darrell doing? Like, a lot of these former players, right? They struggle after their career's over. Like, what do I do now? Some of them go into coaching. Some of them go into scouting. Some of them just raise their kids, I guess. But, it seems like maybe Darrell needs to go into coaching or scouting or media or something, instead of sitting around waiting for somebody to insult him and then responding. So this article, though, is about Antonio Cromartie coming to our camp. And now Cromartie is back in New York, but this time as a coach. Well, he'll be in New Jersey, but I'm grateful for the opportunity. He has the Bill Walsh internship with the Jets for fall camp. Ready to learn as much as I can. Thank you to Coach Sala and the staff. The Bill Walsh Coaching Fellowship is a way for the league to try and allow former players the chance to get into the league as a coach. Designed as a vocational tool to increase the number of full-time NFL minority coaches, all 32 NFL clubs participate each year. And the objective is to use the NFL club's off-season workout programs and minicamps to give talented coaches opportunities to observe, participate, gain experience, and ultimately gain a full-time NFL coaching position. Now, I think this is a great, program, and it's a great idea. Let's get more of our players back into the league as coaches, and then they can make their way up the ranks if they're good enough. But this is also why, Coach Crow here, might have wanted to take the high road in this beef with Darrell, because he's the one coming back to coach, and now, as you know, Sala and everybody on our staff does not like the negativity. They don't like any negativity. They want to keep everything positive vibes. So, not sure it was a good idea for Cromartie to get into it with Revis, especially because our young kids, they adore Revis, our young cornerbacks and defensive backs. All right, this is the now 40-year-old played for the Jets from 2010 to 2013, returned for the 2015 season, recorded 63 passes defensed with 13 interceptions, making the Pro Bowl in 2012 and 13. Will the Jets win the AFC East this year? Let's vote. Let's see what the tally is. See, look how slow this is going. Why isn't it telling me submit the vote? Let's see how many people said yes. Look how slow this is. This is not good. We're going to have to improve our technicalities here. Email must be filled. Oh, that's fine. I'm not giving you my email, A to Z Sports. All right, so Coach Crow joins the staff. Snowball says, some players are just meant to play. Some can coach as well. I wonder where Crow will fit in. Yeah, and Crow has been doing some sort of coaching on some level. As you see in his bio, it says Coach Crow. And he's been doing some kind of coaching, you might call it. He's been doing coaching. So Coach Crow back on staff. We'll see how the guys enjoy him. What about this story? Moving on to the next one. Ty Johnson redemption arc? Now, let's see what this story is all about. Probably what I did done click on these before. Former Jets cast off current front runner in race for Bill's RB2 role. So the Buffalo Bills need to identify a primary backup behind RB1 James Cook, and a somewhat forgotten player may win the role. But I tell you who didn't forget about him is old Frankie, because I remember what happened with Ty Johnson. He's 26 years old now, and last year, if you remember, he got injured in the preseason, or even before the preseason, in the off season. He tore his pec or something, and the Jets immediately released him. And I said, well, okay, that must mean he's out for the year if we're just releasing him for no reason. But it turns out he wasn't out for the season, and the Bills picked him up, and he played a big role for them last year, if you remember. Pretty big role. I mean, it's a supporting role. And it says here, running back Ty Johnson proved valuable in his first season with the Bills, and his performance has apparently earned him the opportunity to compete for the RB2 role. Now, my question to you is, why did we release him? Well, there was no reason to do that. Bill says, yeah, and if you remember, I used to have some arguments with, not really arguments, but I was on the other side of this, Phil. I was like, well, actually, Ty Johnson, for what you pay him, is quite valuable, which is what this article is saying. It's not that he's going to be your RB1, and get a lot of workload done, but for us, he was like RB3 or 4 sometimes. And we were paying him like $1 million, which is, of course, nothing in the NFL. So the value you get from the player relative to his cost was high, in my opinion. And he had his drop problems. Well, no, this was on the 90-man. I mean, keep him on the 90-man snowball. I mean, this was in the off season. Like, we had 90 roster spots, literally 90, and we got rid of Ty. Like, this wasn't, at the end of the training camp, and we needed to make room on the 53. That's the thing I didn't get, Snowball. It's like, okay, we got 90 men on the roster, so if we were cutting him, I thought, okay, it's got to be a season ender type of injury, because that's the only reason to do it. But it wasn't. That was what confused me. And I always thought Ty Johnson was a great number 2 or 3 running back, especially if he's number 3, and especially for the cost, right? But they're saying this guy is going to be probably RB2. After the New York Jets released Johnson with a non-foot injury designation, which means he probably was working out or something and hurt himself. Off basically means off the outside of the Jets facility. In other words, he wasn't doing anything official with the Jets, and he got injured on his own. That's what that means. Landed in Buffalo last August and started the season on the practice squad. We could have put this guy on the practice squad. It would have been perfect, even if we wanted to make room for Izzy on the 53 and all that. And then Johnson was called up in October and saw his opportunities increasing. Johnson flashed as a dangerous pass catcher out of the backfield. Now, isn't this interesting? Look at this paragraph of 2 sentences. Johnson flashed as a dangerous pass catcher out of the backfield during 2+ seasons with the Jets. Caught 62 passes for 559 yards and 3 touchdowns for the green and white. But if you ask people who watched him closely, like Green Bean and myself and lots of other Jet fans, they would say what? He had too many drops. He dropped the ball, which is true. And if you look at his stats, I think he had like 8 drops in one season, which was very bad. But then he didn't really do that any other season. He just had a bad year, which is, for a backup, sometimes that gets you cut. But I think it was a mistake. This guy's useful. He's fast. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. Here he is getting interviewed. So they're even giving him some screen time and so forth and so on. So, yeah, you can never have too many fast guys. And I never understood why we cut old Ty Johnson. Yeah. So Snowball says, that's why Hackett was unaware of pass catching running backs. Although Aaron Jones, think back to Green Bay. Aaron Jones was quite good coming out of that as a pass catcher and a run. All right, let's move on to our next news item. I'll save Aaron Rodgers visits Egypt for later, but the New York Jets logo dispute. Did you know the Jets are having a dispute about their logo? The new logo, that is, from Sportco, the business of sports. Oops. No, we're not going to support you, Sportico. Jets logo, this is an article by Michael McCann, legal analyst and senior sports legal reporter. This guy worked his way up. He used to be junior, now he's senior. Michael McCann, Jets logo sparks federal lawsuit against NFL, T. And they show an old school. Here, look at our old uniforms. This is Aaron Glenn here. Look at these things. You gotta love it. These are the classics right here. All right, so what's this all about? A former New York Jets employee sued the team, the NFL, and NFL properties as well. Let's sue everybody. Sue everybody. Accusing them of using his logo design without compensation and violating his right of publicity through a website video. I don't know what that means. Right of publicity through a website video? What does that mean? Shouldn't it be a violation of his property, intellectual property, through a website video? Maybe it means, I don't know what that means. William Jim Pons worked for the Jets in the 1970s as a film and video director, where he says he helped to produce in-house game films. Now, first of all, this is a little shady. I got to say, this is a little shady because this guy's name is William. Why would his nickname be Jim? He's got many nicknames available to him as a William. You got Will, you got Willie, you got Will I Am, you got Bill, you got Billy. That's 5 right there. Why would you need to go to Jim? That's not right. What's up with that? And Jim is a nickname for James, not William. So I think that right off the bat, this is a little shady. Right off the bat. It says, Pons says he learned the Jets were considering a new logo design for the 1978 season and soliciting proposals from outside graphic artists. Well, but he wasn't outside, he was inside. Drawing from what he learned in a graphic arts class, Pons tossed his hat in the ring by submitting his own proposal. Pons stresses his logo creation was not part of the scope of his job or the job's description, but instead a project he undertook on his own initiative. Well, he's going to have a little bit of a hard struggle here, because if he created it on the Jets' time, like when he was at work, doesn't matter if it was part of his job or job description. What they're going to look at is, were you at work working for the Jets when you did this labor? And did you use any of the Jets' equipment? Now, there was no computers at that time, but did you use their pencils and paper and whatever? And so if you did it on the Jets' time, and if you did it on the Jets with the Jets' equipment that they give you in the office there, then you're going to have a hard time winning this. And not to mention, why didn't you say anything before this? We used your logo. We used it from 1978 to 1997. And all that time you said nothing. So this is a bit shady. What probably is going to happen is that Woody Johnson's going to cut this guy a check, probably, to make this go away. And that's probably what he's hoping for. Now, what did the Jets say? They have it in here. Expect it. They did put out a statement, I thought. Well, they basically said, look, we've been using this logo from 1978. This guy never said anything. And now all of a sudden he's bringing a lawsuit. This is ridiculous. So probably he would not win in court, but also probably Woody Johnson will cut him a check, I think. Yeah, and then they come and they make a good story out of it. They highlighted him, interviewed him, and he had agreed to it. Yeah, he agreed to it, and plus he didn't say anything since 1978. I mean, that's a long time. Then you didn't say anything, and all of a sudden, probably what happened was, after they did this interview, Snowball, probably a bunch of lawyers saw it, and they said, "Hey, wait a minute." They started seeing dollar signs, bing, 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 go off in their brain. And they said, hey, wait a minute. Woody Johnson's rich. We can get some money. And they probably forced him to file the lawsuit. And they probably said, look, You don't got to pay us anything. If we get you, if we get a settlement, we take a cut, and it doesn't cost you anything. So this guy's like, I think 81 years old now. I think it said in this article somewhere. I can't seem to find, but anyway, he's an elderly man, and the lawyers probably came to him and said, "Look, it's not going to cost you anything. We'll file all the paperwork. You just say, yeah, that's exactly what my lawyers are saying. And look, if Woody Johnson cuts us $100,000 check, then we take 20, or $1 million check. We'll take 800,000. You take 200,000, and that'll be the end of it." So I don't think he has much of a leg to stand on this one, but the lawyers are probably hoping that Woody just cuts him some kind of check and everybody goes away happy. All right, any comments on the logo? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, we move on. Let's move on to the next item. The media versus Aaron Rodgers. What do we got here? Should probably use get a new bell. Everybody loves it. Jets X Factor. Jets X Factor. The media versus Aaron Rodgers. Prepare for the receipts. This is by Matt NJY. Perhaps the greatest of all the Jet fans, because he's the man behind the Taylor ham, egg, and cheese sandwich that got us Mike Williams. So you got to put some respect on Matt NJY's name. And he says, prepare for the receipts. Here's Mike Florio looking kind of timid, like maybe he is preparing for some receipts. And Matt says, receipts will be pulled if the media continues its crusade versus Aaron Rodgers. So Matt NJY here is making a statement that Matt, will be pulling the receipts. And I assume he's keeping the receipts. It says, over the past month, we've watched multiple members of the NFL media collectively lose their minds over Aaron Rodgers missing the New York Jets' Mandy Mini. These media members refuse to acknowledge that Rodgers attended nearly every voluntary practice throughout the spring, but that's beside the point. The real issue that needs to be considered is this. Why is the media's reaction to anything Rodgers related so extreme? That's true. This is a good point by Matt NJ. Why? Is it for views? Is it pure hatred of Rodgers? What is it? The truth is, the Mike Florios, Nick Wrights, Jason Lockenforas don't actually care. They have Rodgers derangement syndrome, or RDS. The mere existence of Aaron Rodgers impacts how they operate in day-to-day life. I like this point. This is a good point that Matt's making. Sometimes you got to go on the offensive against these media people. Rodgers' prickly personality or political leanings could turn off a portion of football creators and fans. However, in this instance, we're talking about Egypt, not a game, Egypt. Like Allen Iverson used to say about practice. We're talking about practice. Practice? Practice. Egypt. The derangement has reached a point where if Aaron Rodgers identified a cure for cancer, brokered peace in the Middle East, and supplied the world with clean drinking water, Mike Florio would ask why he didn't do anything about climate change. That's a great point. The recent buzz was really all about a 48-hour period where Jets players went through media day and some light practice. Let's see some of the reactions people had about Rodgers not attending. Jets organization, not a big deal. Jet players, don't care. Jet fans, who cares? Jason Lockenfora, Aaron Rodgers is a threat to democracy. That is a good point. As it pertains to Mike Florio and Pro Football Talk, the Rodgers obsession has seeped into their overall perception of the team. Florio ranked the Jets 25th in his NFL power rankings, which by all accounts is just factually wrong. PFF, known Jet fan antagonists, ranked the Jets defense number one at all three levels. Even with Brian Costello at quarterback, this team would be considered at least top 20. And with a Hall of Fame quarterback and revamped offense, it is easily top 10. Now, a sizable portion of the fan base will tell you, don't give it attention. This is just what they want. But here's the problem. We are one of 32 fan bases. All other teams are consuming anti-Jets propaganda, and the average Joe is too dumb to realize it's not a big deal. Also, these NFL media guys are raking in six-figure salaries, so who cares if their Twitter check from Elon increases $1.45 for the month? When I see a situation going south or see the Jets unfairly being dragged, I'm responding to it 9 times out of 10, Matt says. I've had my fair share of battles defending the Jets against NFL media personalities, and I have never lost. I will pull receipts. I will bring facts. And worst of all, I have an inventory of memes locked and loaded. The two white whales of mine to battle next are Florio and Lockenfora. They see me and are choosing to ignore me for now. Just know, I am inevitable. Well, seems like someone is really taking it to the next level, and I'm here for it. I support Matt NJY, and I think this is what we need to do. Because there's fair criticisms that you can have, certainly, of the Jets and of Aaron Rodgers. It's very obvious what those are. Aaron Rodgers is old. He's coming off an Achilles injury. And, the last time he played, he had sort of a mediocre for Rodgers season. And now he's 2 years older, and he's one Achilles injury more. So, yeah, you could say I'm not optimistic about Mr. Aaron Rodgers because of all those factors. Okay, that's totally fair. But, some of the things they say, that he's metastasized cancer and he's, he has a low football IQ. I mean, Colin Cowherd said Aaron Rodgers has a low football IQ. I mean, that's a new one. I don't think anybody in the history of media has ever said that other than Colin Clownherd. And that's not, what's the evidence for that? Where's the evidence that Aaron Rodgers has a low football IQ? I mean, you could say, you don't like the way he handles the media. You don't like what he says in the media. You don't like the things he says on these podcasts. You don't like this or that, but a low football IQ? I mean, I don't see any evidence. Everybody who's ever interacted with Aaron Rodgers says he's like a football savant. I mean, him and, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, all these people are like, football brainiacs. I don't think anybody who's ever played with him or coached him or anything like that said, yeah, this guy's a dum-dum when it comes to football. So, yeah, this is an interesting, aggressive way to deal with this. And so, I don't know, I think it's interesting, too, that Matt NJY is now writing for Jets X Factor, of course, one of the best websites out there for Jet News. If you're watching this later on and you are not a subscriber to the Jets X Factor, I would highly recommend it. JetsXFactor.com. A membership goes a long way. So that's interesting to see. So like now, Matt NJY, in addition to his X handle, he also has this forum where he can go to Jets X Factor and write articles if this sort of thing continues. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. And I'm all for it. All right, next media item, Brandon Ayuk trade. Is there a Brandon Ayuk trade in the offing? Let's see. This is from Jets Country, written by Evan Massey, July 5th. Once again, the New York Jets have been linked to a blockbuster trade with the 49ers. All right, Snowball says, Frankie, your Egyptian prophecy holds a lot of weight. Look up the history of Aaron, Moses, and the golden calf. He will lead us out and away from our miserable past. Yes, well, Snowball here is referring to a podcast type audio narrative thing that I put out that also appears on this YouTube channel as well. And in it, I prophesy that Aaron Rodgers had to go to the Egyptian pyramids for a very specific reason having to do with the Jets. It wasn't just that he had to go on some random trip, vacation. He was actually going there for a reason, and he had to be there at a specific time. That's why he couldn't move it, up or back. It had to be at a very specific time having to do with the pyramids. And in that prophecy, it is because of what he did that he will enable us to get over the Joe Namath curse that's been holding us back since 1969. So listen to that. Really like doing those audios. They're a lot more fun than video for me. I prefer the audio mixing. Also did an audio about Joe Douglas. That one pulled a lot more audio elements from different places. So check those out. But now let's move on to this Brandon Ayuk trade. So Evan Massey thinks the Jets should be linked to Brandon Ayuk. Now, how are we going to make this work? The New York Jets have left no stone unturned when it comes to adding talent throughout the NFL offseason. Joe Douglas has been clearly looking to do everything he can to power the team to contention. So we tried to get Justin Jefferson, it says here. So Brandon Ayuk, as we all know, is in a stalemate contractual standoff with the 49ers. So the idea is that we should try and make a trade. And then, of course, offer him a contract. Now, the problem is the money. So then this guy's quoting Marcus Mosher of the 33rd team, who says the following: New York doesn't have the cap space to get a deal done right now, but they could easily free up some money with a few restructures. Well, that's true, but the problem with doing that is when you do restructures, you're moving money down the road. Essentially, you're increasing your cap down the road. You're paying a guy more money now, cash money now, but you're increasing and lowering your cap, in this year, but then you're increasing your cap in future years. Now, the problem with doing that for Ayuk is we also have in future years a bunch of other people to pay, named Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and Jermaine Johnson and ABT and all these people that we have. And those are all going to be big contracts, especially Sauce and Garrett. So I don't think this really fits that. I think the Jets are pretty happy with their wide receiver room. The other thing this doesn't take into account, I think the Jets coaches really like Xavier Gibson and Jason Brownlee more than the outsiders looking at the talent, because they didn't really do much last year in terms of production. But we had one of the worst offenses in the history of football. So the fact that Xavier Gibson had 200 plus yards is kind of a miracle, as wide receiver 4 or whatever he was. And so I think from that point of view, I think the Jets like their wide receiver room as is. Not that they wouldn't love to have a Brandon Ayuk. Who wouldn't love to have a Brandon Ayuk? Everybody would love to have a Brandon Ayuk, of course. But it's a matter of the money now, which if we can't afford him right now, but as this says, we could restructure. Yes, you could. But then you're really screwing yourself in the future. And I don't think Joe Douglas has really shown that he wants to do that. We have all this young core of players. We got to take care of them. So I don't think adding Ayuk makes sense, especially because, if you think about the future, the Jets are probably counting on, if you think about it, if things go well, Garrett Wilson, Malachi Corley, Xavier Gibson, and Jason Brownlee are probably your core receivers. And how cool would that be if all those guys developed into really good wide receivers? And, then you got your core. You don't have to be spending a lot of money on these people, outside people. In free agency, you just pay your own people, and there you go. Yeah, Phil Adams says Devontae Adams would have had a 50-yard season with Zach throwing the rock. Yeah, you saw Devontae Adams, how frustrated he got at times with Jimmy Garoppolo when in the beginning of the Raiders season before Garoppolo gave way to Aiden O'Connell. There's a lot of clips of Garoppolo not being able to get Adams the ball. Adams wide open, and he can't get it to him. And then he was a lot happier with Aiden O'Connell, I think, when he took over. So, yeah, Adams would have been frustrated. Adams would have been useless. So, I mean, think about it. Xavier Gibson had 200 yards, which in the grand scheme of things is nothing. But with a terrible offense that couldn't do anything, he had 200 yards. And he was not the first, second, and third option usually. So I think that our coaching staff really loves Gibson and Brownlee, and are hoping they take another step forward this year. And then we have Mike Williams for this year, but then he's probably not going to be back next year. Although I wouldn't mind a 1 or 2 year extension of Mike Williams. But then they're hoping Brownlee can become that big receiver. Xavier becomes the slot guy along with Corley. And then they're hoping Corley can play the X or move him around. Something like that. Because you really want a young core, and then all those people don't have to get paid at the same time. They get paid sort of as time goes on. So I don't see this as realistic. I understand why people are saying this. But probably a more realistic place for Ayuk to go would be the Pittsburgh Steelers, actually. I think they have better cap situation, and they have definitely a better need. If the Steelers got Brandon Ayuk, they would really have a team. I mean, there's very few, other than quarterback. They have to figure out whether Russell Wilson can play quarterback or Justin Fields. But assuming those guys can play quarterback, at an okay level, the rest of their team is pretty good. They just needed a receiver or two. So Ayuk, if he goes anywhere, would probably go to Pittsburgh. All right, next news. Tippmann breakout. This is. What's this all about? Back to A to Z Sports. Highlighting A to Z Sports this year, this show. Key Jets youngster pegged as breakout star at the best time. I don't know if it's the best time, but it is right now. Well, right away they have something wrong. They mean the 2023 season was very forgettable for the New York Jets offense. They had 13 different combinations, so forth and so on. Tippmann had high expectations, and he earned the all-rookie team honors from the Pro Football Writers of America, graded out as the best rookie center, according to PFF. So that's two different sources, the Pro Football Writers of America, and then PFF for old Tippmann. And nobody ever talks about Joe Tippmann. I mean, you think about it. We got Joe Tippmann, we got AVT, we got Olu. I mean, that's 3/5. Maybe Carter Warren could develop, and then we just need one more for like one of those old lines that we used to have where they just stick together for a bunch of years. That'd be awesome. Those honors, coupled with his impressive play, caught the eye of NFL media analyst Bucky Brooks. Now, this says Bucky Brooks named him as a member of the all-breakout team, but then it quotes Matt Miller. So whoever's writing this for A to Z Sports, got to get it together, buddy. But anyway, whether it's Bucky Brooks or Matt Miller, both of those are good sources of information, I will say. So they're not a bunch of bums like Mike Florio. Brooks has Tippmann listed. Look how badly this is written. Brooks has Tippmann listed on the 11-man offensive unit, comprised of strictly of players who have yet to receive any Pro Bowl or All-Pro honors, but they could garner consideration with their play in the coming campaign. So this is very good. Four-time MVP quarterback can alleviate some of the stress on Tippmann. As a scrappy blocker with exceptional length and athleticism, the former second-rounder could settle into his role in year 2 and show more dominance after flashing blue-chip potential, says Matt Miller, this says. Now, if Tippmann becomes a blue chipper, remember that Bucky Brooks has a blue chip theory, okay, that you need, like 8 to 12 blue chip players to go to the Super Bowl. And if Tippmann becomes one, I mean, we got a lot of blue chippers this year. I mean, is Mike Williams a blue chip player? I'd say so. Garrett, Brees, ABT, Rogers, Quinnen, Quincy, CJ, Sauce, DJ. I mean, that's a lot of blue chippers. Michael Carter's a blue chipper, the second. Tyron Smith, obviously. We got Tyron Smith. If Tyron Smith's on the field, he's probably the best player on the field. Of all the players, Tyron Smith's probably the best. Forgot about him. Oh, he's on our team too. Jeez. But Tippmann is a guy nobody talks about. And so this would be great news if Tippmann breaks out. So either Matt Miller and or Bucky Brooks has him breaking out. So that would be great news for the Jets. All right, next news. All right, so we're on to our last one. Aaron Rodgers visits Egypt. Well, let's check this out. I want to see let's see if you guys are going to be able to hear this. This is from SNY. This has already been discussed a bunch, but I wanted to. Let's see if you can hear this. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, I thought so. All right, so what these two guys are saying basically, and you can see from their body language, probably, that they don't like it. They don't like Rodgers going to Egypt. And this is actually what made me. I think you have to share the page audio as well. All right. So I'll explain. These guys are not for Rodgers going to Egypt. And this is what's actually got me thinking about Rodgers in Egypt and why it was that he had to go there. And that was sort of like how I came up with the idea. Well, maybe there was a reason he had to go at that time. Because if you think about it, the timing is the weirdest thing for me. So in a sense, I do agree with these two to a degree. It's like, why did he have to go at that time? He could have gone a week later. He could have gone 3 days later. But apparently he scheduled it when he was rehabbing his injury, is what Connor Hughes, NFL insider Connor Hughes, said. But what doesn't really make sense is that Rodgers, as a 20-year veteran in the NFL, knows as well as anyone when minicamps are typically scheduled. And he also knows that, like, the first week of July, second week of July, you're going to have off. So why didn't he just schedule it for the first week in July as opposed to when he did? So that's the thing that got me thinking. There must be a reason that he scheduled it for that exact time. That's actually was the genesis of when I started writing that script for the story I put out, the audio story. I had to come up with a why. Why did he have to go on these specific 2 days or that time period to Egypt on that exact time period? Doesn't make any sense. So I'll put a big caveat that we have not heard from Rodgers. The other thing is he came back from Egypt. We have not heard from him. Where is why didn't he put out a statement or go on a podcast or do the McAfee show and say anything about his Egypt trip? About why it was that he had to go at that exact time. Nobody cares that he went to Egypt. That's what these people are saying. Nobody cares that he goes to Egypt. Who cares? But the fact was that he scheduled it for when the Jets had minicamp. And of course, the people who are criticizing the most are saying it's mandatory minicamp, mandatory, and you didn't go, so shame on you. And there's some validity to that. But that's the thing I don't get is why did he have to go at that exact time and those exact dates? Phil says maybe whoever Rodgers went to Egypt with. Yeah, but that's not a strong reason, Phil. Like I was hoping before we knew he went to Egypt, I was hoping something would come out like, oh, there was a family event, a Rodgers family event that was very important and he couldn't miss it because like somebody was getting married or some big event like that. And also he went and repaired his relationship with his parents and his brother. For those who don't know, Aaron Rodgers has a very, I would say, troubled relationship with both his parents and his brother Jordan. Did you know that Aaron Rodgers' brother Jordan was in the NFL? Let me know in the comments if you knew that Aaron Rodgers' brother was in the NFL. Now, it was only in practice squads. He never played in an NFL game. But he was in the NFL, a couple of teams. He was on the practice squad. But anyway, he has two brothers, and one in particular he has a very rough relationship with. I believe it's his brother Jordan Rodgers. And he also has some trouble with his parents. And so what I was hoping was that like it would come out like it was a super important family event, and he went there to repair these relationships. And now that he's repaired them, everything's all lovey-dovey, and everybody's getting along. And it was very important for him to do that. And it was the person was getting married on such and such a date, and therefore he couldn't miss it. And that's what I was hoping. But then it comes out, no, he went to Egypt. So that's what got me thinking about why he had to go at this specific time. But these people also said, the first guy said, hey, all these people making excuses for him. Well, this is the article of Connor Hughes appearing on SNY. And one of the people making excuses, quote unquote, for Aaron Rodgers is Connor Hughes. Here's Rodgers attended every day of the phase one. He missed a week of phase two, but attended every organized team activity, also voluntary. So Connor Hughes says Rodgers originally pieced this trip together during his recovery from Achilles, gave him something to look forward to. He's long admired Egyptian culture and scheduled the visit for what was believed to be after the off-season programs. That's the part that doesn't make sense. The Jets were made aware of the trip when the official minicamp dates were announced and overlapped with Rodgers' plans. While an unexcused absence, the team is not concerned that this will impact Rodgers' season. They wanted him at minicamp, but were understanding of how important this trip was for him. So there you go. Mandatory minicamp, while mandatory is simply 2 practices. So we'll have to see. I would like to hear from Rodgers to know exactly what was going on and why he had to do it at these exact dates. We don't know. But he hasn't come out and said anything. So we don't know. All right, so that's it for the news in reviews. Let's see. Okay. All right, so any Q&A? We've been going live for about an hour now. Any more Q&A questions? Phil, Mr. Phil and Mr. Snowball. Snowball Global. Snowball Global. Oh, yeah, this is probably what I was thinking, Snowball. Remember in Raiders of the Lost Ark when the sun passed through the opening of the tomb and something significant happened? Exactly. And, not to go on a conspiratorial tip, but like these pyramids in Egypt are fascinating. I mean, they really are. They used to be coated in limestone, they say. It's fascinating how they, how they built them, number one, and then why they built them. I mean, then it doesn't even get into the Sphinx. Like, how the heck did they build that Sphinx? It's amazing. This is ancient times. They didn't have backhoes and stuff. And the sun only shines at the yeah, exactly, Phil. Snowball says it's Jets worldwide. I thought it was Snowball global. That would be good. Taking the Snowball global. Yeah, we got to make the Snowball global. Jets worldwide. Jets worldwide sports. Well, there's Jets fans everywhere, and Phil is a testament to that. Oh, you know what? Something else, Phil, that I saw. As we all know, Phil Adams is over in Britain. There's a European League of Football, Phil. And I don't mean soccer, like regular football, like the Rhine Fire and the something Stuttgart something. Why don't people pay attention to the European League of Football? And it seems to have similar rules to NFL football. I think last year the winner of that league was the Rhine Fire. And I started thinking, why don't people pay attention to this league? Seems pretty good. You got the Stuttgart Sea Dragons or something. You got the, you got other teams. The Milan Seamen. Yeah, you got a team called, right, exactly, Snowball. The Milan, there's a team called the Seamen, not the Seamen, M-A-N, the Seamen, M-E-N. The Milan Seamen. Yeah, what's wrong with the Seamen? Why can't we root for Seamen? How about that? Well, you might want to ask him, Snowball, what's going on with this league? I started looking at it and going, maybe I should pay attention to this. I mean, it looked pretty good from the highlights. It looked just like NFL football. I mean, the players aren't as good, obviously, but I mean, it wasn't crazy like the Canadian Football League with like a massive end zone or something. So maybe we should pay attention to the European Football League. But I don't know, all these NFL fans over in Europe, I don't understand why more of them don't gravitate toward that league. LOL, who's trying to get Testaverde? Yeah, probably Vinny Testaverde could probably still throw the ball pretty well. he always had an amazing arm. Phil says, bloke from my cricket team owns Orlando City. Orlando City? I don't know what that is. Well, to coach. Yeah, and you wonder, like, even if you can't, like some of these guys who want to coach, but they can't get into the NFL, go over to the European League. Why not? Go experience Europe. I mean, you get to live. That's the thing I was thinking. I was like, man, they probably could use some data analysts and stuff. And then if they hire you, you get to go live in Germany or Paris or something. Like, that's not so bad. Like, let's go. You know what I mean? Like October Beer Fest, that's pretty good. Oktoberfest in Germany, that is pretty good. That's pretty good. But I don't hear anything about the European League of Football. They call it ELF, I think. But I don't hear anything about it. Oh, Orlando City Soccer Football Club. Yeah, I don't know anything about that, Phil. I'm all about the regular football. But here in Orlando, the football team is the UCF. People call it the hometown team. It seems like we're going to be pretty good UCF this year. I think we're currently ranked 25th overall. I'll keep an eye on the guys on the team for you. But yeah, I'm going to keep my eye on this European League of Football. It seems like one of these things that like nobody knows about. I didn't even know it existed. But it does. And so kind of fascinating. And you wonder if it could become like a minor leagues of the NFL or something like that eventually, or have some sort of association. Like if they, like, for example, I think there's like 16 teams in that league, or maybe 17. Like, what if every team in the NFL shared a team of that organization, and then there was like their minor leagues, and they could call up any players who started doing really good, at any time, kind of like the minor leagues. And so the Jets would be associated with the Rhine Fire. And, that would get a lot of attention on it. And then we could call up any Rhine Fire players that we needed at any point in time, and we could send down some people to be developed, some real development. Because how much development do the people on the practice squad really get, if you think about it? They don't get to play in any games. They only get to practice. Wouldn't a better development team be something like the European League of Football, where they actually have competition, they have to play in front of the crowds and all that? Although the highlights I saw, the crowds were not that great. But, it seems to me if the NFL would get involved, that would bring the whole situation up. London had a team called the Monarchs back in the 70s and 80s. I'm pretty sure London has a team in this league. They must, I think. I'm not sure, but I've been told that the financial situation for each team is very unequal. Some have mega cash and some are bare bones. This is something that never gets talked about, Snowball, but it's very important. The NFL made a very important decision when they started up the league back in the day, a long time ago. They said it's going to be share and share alike, with all the revenues and everything. It's sort of like kind of like a socialist kind of experiment, but they said everybody should share in the pie equally. And we're going to split up the TV rights equally, the radio right, all the rights. We're going to share and share alike. And for this reason, for competitive fairness. Because how fair is it? And now you're seeing all these other leagues with hard caps and soft caps and all the caps. And the reason is competitive fairness. Back in the day, the Yankees would just buy their teams. Like, remember the Yankee teams, like, that would just dominate with Joe DiMaggio and all these people? It's because they just had the most money and they just paid everybody the most. And so they got all the best players, and then they won. What a big surprise. Well, that's not good for competitive fairness. It's not good for rivalries and all that. So here you have something similar. Whoever owns these teams needs to make a decision like the NFL made. Like, it's going to be share and share alike. We're going to split up the pie evenly. We're going to have a salary cap for everybody, and that's how we're going to do it, because otherwise, you get this haves and have-nots situation. How's that good for competitive fairness? And how is your league going to survive without competitive fairness? Like, the point is that the league has to survive, you would think, for a long time. And then you make your money with valuation, right? Look how valuable these teams are. I was going to bring up something about the Celtics, right? The Boston Celtics are about to get sold for some reason. They just won the championship, and now the owner's going to sell the team. How weird is that? But then you make your money through the value of the franchise, right? Like, if Woody Johnson wanted to sell the Jets right now today, you could probably sell it for $8 billion with a B. And what, he bought it for $500,000? I mean, that's quite that's quite the investment. But you look at it like an investment. You don't look at it like a cash cow, like a Walmart, where you just have a cash cow business. No, you probably don't make money year over year that much. Arguably some teams make more than others, but it's probably not a cash cow business. But then when you go to sell it, it's way more valuable, because the property has, the league has allowed you to increase the value of it because of these rules. So I don't know what's going on in the league or who's running it or what. I just started finding out about it the other day. Yeah, but I mean, think about it, Phil. Phil says businessmen first, football fans second. But it's good business to do it that way. Like, you kind of have to think long term and not, in the next quarter and the next, month, and how much cash are we making this month. You got to think about it long term. But I mean, the model's there. The model's proven out, right? The NFL is a proven model. So if you're smart, you would go and model your league on what the NFL is doing. Look, it's the most successful league in the world. So why not model that? It's crazy. No, let's use these teams as like a cash business, like it's Walmart. It's not Walmart. It's a football team. It's not Walmart, goddammit. Yeah. Take a little pain now and you'll be paid off later. Look what's going on. Even though Walmart now owns the Denver Broncos are not Walmart. That's the lesson from today. All right, I guess we'll call it a Sunday. Happy Sunday to everyone. Thank you, Snowball and Phil Adams, for showing up. I appreciate it. We'll come back next Sunday, 10 a.m., and we'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.